What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. And today we got a reaction top 10 Superman songs brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter and patron of the channel, Evan David. Thank you, Evan David. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out the Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do this channel without the patrons. You want to give a one-time gift, one-time reaction, check out our Buy Me a Coffee page, also linked below. This is a timely, at the time that I'm recording this in July of 2025, the Superman movie just came out a couple weeks ago, and so this is very timely to do. Evan David does all of the research. If you want to see the video with the songs in it, go ahead and click on the Vimeo link below. I'll remind you again when I'm done with the background information, but do that if you want. This is all Evan David's research, and here we go. Rock and roll and wider pop culture legend has it that the genesis of the phenomenon that would become Superman can be traced at least as far back as 1938, when writer Jerry Siegel and artist Joe Shuster, who had spent years desperately trying to sell their embryonic concept of a strange hero from another planet with powers and abilities beyond those of mortal men as a newspaper strip to various publishers without success, finally struck a deal with National Comics, not yet known as DC Comics, which would see Superman be published as the lead strip in the first issue of the new Action Comics series in the August of that year. Faster than the proverbial speeding bullet, Superman would turn out to be a pop cultural juggernaut that would not only spawn hordes of imitators in the fast-growing comic book world, including a certain Cape Crusader Dark Knight in 1939, who would serve as his closest crime-fighting ally rival almost ever since, would also see his legend spread to other multimedia outlets such as movies, serials, cartoons, books, toys, clothing, and just about every other form of super paraphernalia that could be thought of at the time. Of particular importance in shaping the early Superman mythos was the Superman radio show, which debuted in 1940 and would endure in various incarnations until 1951, when it would be replaced by the first live-action Superman television series show starring George Reeves. Not to be confused, of course, with Christopher Reeve, and many people do that. The radio show not only set in stone the names of various super characters and locations, such as Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, and even the Daily Planet newspaper itself, but the show's breathless introduction with its immortal phrases such as, "Look, up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman," has served to sum up the essence of the character ever since. Given its already prominent radio presence, moreover, it's perhaps unsurprising that the legend of Superman would also go on to have something of an impact on the world of popular music too, a process hinted at as early as Action Comics issue number 6, when a nightclub singer is depicted as belting out a torch song with the title, "You're Superman." As Superman biographer Glenn Weldon commented many years later, when Siegel and Shuster created this scene sometime in the summer of 1938, the notion that their creation would saturate popular culture enough to figure in a song lyric, even a fictional one, of Siegel's devising, was a throwaway gag. This would change, end quote. Indeed, as the years passed and many of the children who had grown up reading Superman and his fellow comic book heroes became musicians themselves, a certain cross-pollination between the two fields was perhaps inevitable. For example, a 1959 issue of the spin-off title Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, featured crooner Pat Boone on the cover, with the story itself depicting how Superman had to stop a song about him sung by Pat and Lois from becoming a hit in order to avoid a potential risk to his secret identity as Clark Kent. While a 1964 issue of another super spin-off, namely Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, saw the Cub reporter start something of a Beatles craze, wigs and all, when transported back to biblical times by a villain's time-traveling shenanigans. The Beatles will return the favor a year later when copies of various Superman-related comics will be shown on the organ played by Paul McCartney in the Fab Four's swinging pad in the Help movie. And while Elvis was influenced more by Superman's rival Captain Marvel, and especially his sidekick Captain Marvel Jr., whose flashy lightning bolt-themed outfits would inspire much of the King's 70s era look than he ever was by the Man of Steel per se, he doubtless spoke for many of the rock and roll contemporaries when he said in 1971 that, quote, "I read the comic books and I was the hero of the comic books," end quote. Elsewhere, cartoon rocker and lifelong comics aficionado Gene Simmons of Kiss fame once claimed that reading Superman comics in particular inspired him to learn English after immigrating to America from Israel as a child, recalling how, quote, "When I discovered television and people flying through the air like Superman, I could not believe my eyes because it broke every rule. And only in America, of course, would superheroes be invented. I could not put Superman down. I also felt like a stranger in a strange land. And even though Superman was a real alien from another planet, and I was a figurative alien from another country, I saw that I could rise above the handicap of not being able to speak English," end quote. More recently, moreover, in a 2001 issue of Superboy, Superman revealed that while the outside world may perceive his heroic alter ego as a square, Clark Kent, by contrast, owned every Metallica album, with his favorite being And Justice for All. Small wonder then that the author of The Rough Guide to Superheroes noted that the Man of Steel seems to bring out the reflective side of many a muso, with the proof of this statement being that the official Superman homepage lists more than 600 examples of songs that refer to Superman in one shape or form. And Evan David says, while I sadly didn't have time to listen to all of them when compiling this list, I did pick out around 24 or so examples of songs I already knew or which seemed particularly interesting before narrowing them down to produce the top 10 list of Superman-related songs, or super songs for short, that you are about to hear. Some of them depict various aspects of Superman and his world in relative depth, while others do little more than name-check the term Superman in their titles or lyrics. But hopefully all of them are entertaining enough to provoke a super lively discussion in the comments below, even if the list itself is in no way meant to be a definitive one. Above all, Evan David says, as a lifelong Superman fan myself, ever since reading British reprints of John Byrne's classic Man of Steel comic series in the mid to late 80s, and one who's avidly looking forward to seeing the new 2025 Superman movie as of this writing, I hope to have done Siegel and Schuster's creation justice with this list of super songs, even while remembering that, as Glenn Weldon once puts it, quote, Superman will endure because that is what he does. It's what he is for. In his over 85 years of fictive life, he has grown larger than the movies, the comics, the television programs, the radio shows, the novel, the video games, the action figures, the song lyrics, the crypto ray guns, the underoos, the Halloween costumes, the porn parodies, and the academic papers. What will endure about him is nothing to do with his powers, but is everything to do with what he does. He helps others, and he doesn't give up. He was the first and best, and in some form, he'll be around for centuries to come, because no matter how much he changes on the outside, Superman will always speak to the essential, the most hopeful, the most invulnerable part of us all. And I am going to put a link to the aforementioned list of over 600 songs with Superman references in them down below in the description of this video. So if you're interested in those, because it's a pretty interesting list, go check that out. All right, I'm going to remind you again, the music won't be in the video, it'll be at the Vimeo link below. Click on that if you want to follow along with us. Let's kick this thing off with number 10, Superman by the Stereophonics. First released as part of the Stereophonics' fifth studio album, Language, Sex, Violence, Other, in March 2005. And then as a single 3 months later, reaching 13 on the UK singles chart. This driving, compulsive, even sinister sounding tune has often been used to open the Welsh indie band's live gigs ever since. And as such, it seems appropriate that a studio version in turn would also serve to open this list of super songs too. All right, Stereophonics, absolutely huge in the UK, but in the US, never had the success anywhere close to what they had and have had in the UK. But Kelly Jones really bringing it on this one. They're critically loved, Stereophonics is, but you know, there is specific mention of Superman, Lois Lane, so Superman is definitely used in this song in a real way. It's not about Superman, it's about likening this guy that he's talking about in ways to thinking this guy thinks he's Superman. But good choice to start it off. Next up at number 9, a song I'm very familiar with, Kryptonite by Three Doors Down. First released as a single in January 2000, reaching number 3 in the US and number 1 in the US mainstream rock and modern rock charts. And then as part of the Mississippi-based post-grunge band's debut studio album, The Better Life, a month or so later. This powerfully propulsive tune was apparently first written by Three Doors Down singer-drummer Brad Arnold in a math class when he was just 15 years old, with Arnold himself later going on to explain, unquote, it's really just asking a question, kind of a strange one. It's not just asking, if I fall down, will you be there for me? Because it's easy to be there for someone when they're down, but it's not always easy to be there for somebody when they're doing good, and that's the question it's asking at the same time. If I'm doing good, will you be there for me? Will you not be jealous of me? That's a basic question that the song's asking. Maybe throughout the years of singing that song, I might have come up with more meanings for it than it actually might have originally had, end quote. Evan David says, regardless of such potential meanings, however, I for one think that it's still a really good, compelling super song in its own right. So yeah, I mean, this song was everywhere and put Three Doors Down on the map. And they had a decent little run, had a little soundtrack run in one of the American Pie movies as well. So yeah. Song still holds up. Great drumming. I didn't know that Brad was their drummer at the time, so that explains why the drumming's so great and it's at the forefront. Brad was only 21 when the song was released, and so he's only 46 now, but right now, it was announced this year he's fighting stage 4 cancer, so thoughts and prayers to Brad, man, but this song holds up. I didn't know if it held up or not. You know, I'm very familiar with it, very familiar with the video, but it does hold up. So I never heard song number 10. I heard song number 9. I've never heard this song, to my knowledge, Land of Make Believe by Bucks Fizz. First released as a single in November 1981, reaching number 1 in the UK singles chart, and then as part of the Eurovision winning British pop group's second album, Are You Ready, in April 1982. This gleefully dreamlike evocation of fairy tale style childhood fantasies, including Superman, of course, hence its place on this list, has long been something of a so-called musical guilty pleasure of mine, Evan David says. When viewed in this context of this particular super songs list, it also serves to remind us that while comic books and their characters may rightly or wrongly not have been seen as being just for kids for decades now, their long-standing role in feeding youthful imaginations of all ages cannot and should not be denied. Interestingly enough, the song's lyricist, ex-King Crimson member Peter Sinfield, insisted in a somewhat similar vein many years later that, quote, beneath its tra-la-las is a virulent anti-Thatcher song. It is 10 times more difficult to write a 3-minute hit song with a veneer of integrity than it is to write anything for King Crimson or EOP. All right, we are going to, even though you see it below, we're going to check out the official video. Okay, The Land of Make-Believe, just a campy little fun video and campy little fun song, although when you read the lyrics, you do kind of see that once you realize it could be a kind of a shot at Thatcher and all of that stuff, you see it in there. But this video has 6 million views, so and it was put up 8 years ago, the one I was watching. So a fun song. All right, next up at number 7, we got Land of Confusion by Genesis, first released as part of their 13th studio album, Invisible Touch, which the title track was a gigantic song, in June of 1986, and then as a single in October the same year, reaching number 14 in the UK and 4 in the US, fueled in large part by heavy rotation of its innovative official video, which we're going to watch, featuring the puppet-based caricatures of British satirical TV series Spitting Image, including a memorable depiction of then U.S. President Ronald Reagan in full Superman regalia, even as the song itself laments the real Superman's absence at the time of widespread political and cultural turmoil and anxiety. The more things change, etc., etc. So one of the recurring difficulties that some people have with Superman's oft-proclaimed wish to fight for truth, justice, and the American way is the extent to which this can be seen by painting the big blue Boy Scout into an unwinning corner as a mere government stooge. But things are rarely that simple or simplistic in either Superman's fictional world or our own real one, or indeed in this particular super song. I know this song very well. I hated this song with a passion. I hated this video with a passion. I mean, I was 14 years old, so I wasn't going to catch all of it that was there. I loved Invisible Touch, the song. I thought that song was great, but we'll see if I think different of this now. Okay, Land of Confusion. I've only seen this video, I don't know, I've probably seen it 10 times back in the day because I'd always turn it because I hated it. Now I watch, I realize the video is very damning, very bold. I still don't like the song at all, but I mean, they did what they needed to do. This is what 1986 sounded like. It's the poster child for it. The music doesn't hold up. Not their fault. It was incredibly successful then. So not throwing shade at them, but let's move on to our next track. We have Sunshine Superman by Donovan. First released as a single in July or September of 1966, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, reaching number 1 in the US, number 2 in the UK, and then as the title track of the Scottish folk rocker's third studio album in August 1966, although it would be not released in the UK for another year to contractual shenanigans. We did a review of this, so go check it out. This gloriously sunny, psychedelia-tinged ode to the singer's super, if not overconfidence, that will be able to win over his prospective lover was in fact spawned in the wake of Donovan's breakup with his then and future girlfriend muse, Linda Lawrence, in late 1965, with Donovan himself later recalling how, while he had indeed read comics starring the likes of Superman, Green Lantern, and Mandrake the Magician during his Glasgow youth, by then, quote, I also felt that my super strength as a man should be gentle and penetrating, the power of love and will combined. All this for a girl whom I believed was out of my life forever. It is said that the music business was an artist and heartache, for then the songs ringing with a longing that sells records. There was no so-called protest songs on the Superman album. My quest now was to engender a feeling of love and compassion. All right. The not so subtle fade outs of this album was always funny to me. Sunshine Superman, really good song of the time as well. Of course, this is 20 years before Land of Confusion. That song was of its time music-wise. This is of its time music-wise in a much more timeless way, but really good. Let's get to the top 5. We have Superman, in parentheses, It's Not Easy, by Five for Fighting. First released as part of Five for Fighting, a.k.a. American singer-songwriter John Ondrasik's, it's only one guy, second studio album, America Town, in September of 2000. Later as a single in April 2001, eventually reaching number 14 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 chart. It's a beautifully melancholic lament of an all-too-human man of steel, which John once claimed was about, quote, frustration about the inability to be heard. In turn, Evan David says, took on a new symbolic life of its own when, as CBS News once aptly put it, quote, it became an anthem in the days after 9/11. Its lyrics resonated with people, bringing a sense of raw humanity and comfort to those who needed it most, end quote. Evan David says a cathartic function, which I would argue this song, as well as the figure of Superman himself, continues to perform for many to this day. So I know this song really well, not just because it was a hit single, because it was on the TV show Smallville about the Man of Steel. And we had that CD soundtrack, so I've always enjoyed this song. All right, Superman, It's Not Easy. I still enjoy that song. It might not be a top flight song for most, but it has good memories for me. And that's kind of what music is, right? So well done. So number 4, in parentheses first, Wish I Could Fly Like, and then Superman. So the song's name is Superman, basically, by the Kinks. First released as a single in December 1978, reaching 41 in the U.S., and as part of the Kinks' 18th studio album, Low Budget, in July or September 1979. Again, depending on which side of the pond you're on. The super witty rock disco crossover cry of mock despair at being unable to cope with the myriad demands of an ordinary life bereft of Superman's powers was apparently first intended as a joke response to the head of Kinks' then record label Arista Records, Clive Davis, requests that their next record be more club-friendly, with Kinks songwriter frontman Ray Davies, no relation, of course. Of course, that's called Davis. I know some of you pronounce that Davis. In America, it's Davies. Further explaining in 1981 how I've always admired Superman comics. I went to see the film when it came out at Christmas 3 years ago, the first Superman, which is still fantastic. I was overwhelmed. I thought it was so true to the comic books. I wanted to write kind of a rock disco because I hate disco music as a rule, but now we got a sort of mix with rock and roll backbeat, and it works really well. By contrast, Ray's brother and fellow Kink guitarist Dave recalled many years later that he had thought at first that Superman could have been one of the biggest mistakes we made. I remember I had quite a difficult time with Ray while we were making the record because I didn't like the direction it was going. It's a strange time for music in general anyway. The fact that it's funny, that it was a humorous song, saved it. I don't feel bad about that song at all, but it could have been a big mistake. End quote. All right, Wish I Could Fly Like Superman by the Kinks. Pretty good song. I never heard that song. The melding of rock and a little bit of disco under there and some kind of amusing lyrics. So good choice for number 4. Number 3, we got Jimmy Olsen's Blues by the Spin Doctors. First release as part of the New York-based alternative rockers' debut studio album Pocket Full of Kryptonite in August 1991. Then as a single in early 1993, only reaching 78 in the US and 40 in the UK. As its title suggests, this is a tongue-in-cheek ode to the romantic dilemmas of not Superman himself, but rather Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, the longtime photographer, cub reporter from the Daily Planet, whose litany of bizarre, if not bizarro, transformations, play on words, whether they be accidental or courtesy of his trusty disguise kit, while questing for a scoop led to Olsen, as Superman's comic writer Grant Morrison aptly put it, quote, prefiguring David Bowie, Madonna, or Lady Gaga, as his life became a shifting parade of costume changes and reinventions of identity, end quote. As such, and while this particular super song may indeed veer into non-canonical territory, as it depicts his hopeless crush on a certain Miss Lois Lane, it nevertheless amply retains the oddball sense of humor that often defined the Silver Age super shenanigans that the hapless Jimmy routinely fell into, and for my money is none the worse for that, as I hope you will agree. All right, Jimmy Olsen's Blues, very good choice for this list. I'm just not a fan of the Spin Doctor sound. I never was, but you can't argue with success. This album sold over 10 million copies worldwide, so obviously a huge, huge band. Even if this song didn't hit real big, it definitely suits our purposes on a Superman top 10 songs, as does our number 2 track from a band I absolutely love, Superman by REM, first released as part of their 4th studio album, Life's Rich Pageant, in July 1986, albeit as an unlisted track and later as a single in November the same year, reaching 17 on Billboard's mainstream rock chart. This breezily self-aggrandizing ode to the limitless possibilities available to the unbeatable Man of Steel first saw life as a minor top 40 hit for the obscure Texas pop band The Click back in 1969. So I did not know that. With Superman biographer Glenn Weldon later explaining how on REM's version, unusually, the task of lead vocal on the song fell to bass player Mike Mills when Michael Stipe begged off. The song would become a darling of college radio stations during the next year, serving as an offbeat, wholly unintentional anthem to accompany Superman's resurgence in the comics at the time. End quote. Certainly this remains perhaps my own personal favorite super song, Evan David says, with lyrics like I am Superman and I can do anything, aptly summing up the simple wish fulfillment that has been at the heart of much of the character's appeal ever since 1938, and as such would be a worthy number 1 on this list. Indeed, if it were not for, I know, can't show you yet, but we're going to react to a fan-made Superman tribute video featuring the song. There's some brief clips from the 2025 movie included, so if you don't want to have any spoilers, if you haven't seen it, I don't know how many spoilers there would be in it. Don't watch. All right, a really well done fan video there. It's got almost 100,000 views. Just put up 2 weeks ago with, splicing everything, the movies. Not every movie, because some of the movies weren't very good in the original Christopher Reeve run, but he is the ultimate Superman to me. 3 TV series and all that good stuff. Good song. Super enjoy that song. Mike pulls that off fine without Michael. Mike Mills instead of Michael Stipe. Pulls it off just fine. Really good song. And we'll drum roll it into number 1. The only choice it could be, Superman main theme by the great John Williams. First released as part of the soundtrack, of course, to the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie in 1978, according to John Williams himself. One of the essential things about the film to me was the fact that it was fun and it didn't take itself too seriously. And if one could strike a level of theater and sleight of hand and tongue-in-cheek in the themes, then it might be the right idea. The main hero theme is made up of several parts, and it's kind of a fanfare each time he opens his shirt. You get the sort of three-note Superman musical motif that precedes the opening of his shirt. So if he's going through a revolving door, the music would establish that each time he reveals his shirt, there was this magical, balletic preparation for it. I tried to have the music constructed in such a way that it would be heroic and big and operatic, but not take itself too seriously. End quote. In any case, this rousing supermarch has become indelibly linked to the character ever since, to the extent that the most recent Superman director, James Gunn, used a suitably electrifying rock version of Williams' original theme in the first trailer for the 2025 movie as an homage. And it's that original 1978 version of them that I'd like you to react to with another fan-made video. We put up a movie soundtrack top 10, or we will, that the live stream community, we have live streams every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We do lists and we put them together and then I make videos for them. And we didn't have any instrumentals, but this would have been the one. I just didn't have instrumentals because you have this. I mean, there's a lot of iconic instrumentals in the 70s in particular. You got Jaws, you got Star Wars, you got Superman, you got Close Encounters, you got Rocky. I mean, think about that. Those are 5 iconic. So let's do it. Number 1 on Evan David's top 10 Superman songs, or super songs as he dubs it. Superman's main theme by the great John Williams. All right. Very well done video by HD Film Tributes. They have 2.8 million subs. That vid has over 23 million views. Deservedly so. Fantastic. Sums up the theme. Get to see all kinds of great stuff from the great man himself, Christopher Reeve. That first Superman movie, Trey watched it a couple weeks ago again. I watched it with him years ago. He said it still holds up. I got to go check it out again. All right, let's get to my favorites. Before we get to mine, we get to Evan David's honorable mentions. There's a ton of them, as there always is for Evan David. So I'm going to go real fast here. Oh, Superman by Laurie Anderson. Captain Crash and the Beauty Queen from Mars by Bon Jovi. Superman Song by Crash Test Dummies. You Don't Mess Around with Jim by Jim Croce. Party Up in Here by DMX. Great song. Superman by Goldfinger. Superman's Big Sister by Ian Drury and the Blockheads. White Wedding by Billy Idol. Hang in There Superman by Hal Ketchum. My Name is Jack by Man for Man. Superman's Ghost by Don McLean. Superman by New Riders of the Purple Sage. Superman's Sex Life Boogie by Tom Smith. Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler. CNR by Weird Al Yankovic. Save Me by Remy Zero, which is also on the Smallville soundtrack, by the way, and especially Mr. Blue Sky by ELO, the latter of which may not technically be about Superman or even mention it by name, but which nevertheless captures a sheer sense of sunshine-powered optimism that lies at his core, better than just about any other song I can think of. All right, my faves. We'll go with Superman by Stereophonics, Kryptonite by Three Doors Down, Superman It's Not Easy by Five for Fighting, Superman by REM, and of course the Superman theme by John Williams. All right, I'm going to have that list down below. You can click on that link and see the 600 plus songs with Superman somewhere in those songs. Let me know what you think of this list down below. What are your faves? What else would you have on this list? Thanks again to Evan David for putting this together. And until next time, guys, I will see you.